across the world. That report will be coming to you comprehensively in a subsequent news bulletin. But now let's have this conversation on what has been happening this entire week. That is a week in review. With me in studio is Onchari Oyeyo, regional governance expert, and also touches on matters international. Now, Onchari, it has been a very busy week for this country and also the world, but let's just go straight to Uganda. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni tested positive for COVID-19. He delegated his duties to the Prime Minister. Just what does this mean?
Well, of course, from what we're being told, he's recovering well. That's what he's been telling us. Of course, we've had rumors of how the crisis has deepened with the possibility of his condition worsening. And he came out and said, you know, he advised the Ugandans to ignore Kenyans and focus on their own country. Obviously, trying to, you know, eject some confidence in his people. Now, a couple of things we can learn. Number one, COVID is not gone. It's not far away from here, because if Museveni could get it, then I think anyone can get it. We have to remember that he has been very, very cautious. Every meeting we've seen him with a mask, with social distancing and all that. So it's unfortunate. We wish him quick recovery. And of course, having been in office for 3 decades now, you know, being indisposed is not something we could want at this particular point in time, because, of course, he has not prepared anyone in Uganda to take over in case of anything. So we want him to be safe until such a time that Uganda is able to have someone who can take over from him. And the delegation is good. It points to his confidence in especially the Prime Minister Nabanza, who, you know, it's ready to hand over to as he recovers. Yeah.
And now President William Ruto was appointed to lead the IGAD delegation for championing peace in Sudan. In Sudan, as we speak, the chief commander in Sudan actually wanted and preferred Salva Kiir. So why not Ruto? Why Kiir?
Yeah, they've rejected Ruto's leadership, Kenya's leadership, and I think obviously it has to do with the perception of partisanship. And the strong pronouncement which was made by the president of Kenya while in South Africa about how the generals needed to stop the nonsense and come together and stop using African money to destroy African infrastructure. Of course, we agree with what the president said in South Africa. The message was okay. That's what needed to be said at that particular point in time. And what has to happen is they cannot decide that it has to be Kiir and not Ruto. Yes. At the end of the day, it's all about who can be accepted by both sides. At the end of the day, mediation is about acceptance by both sides in the conflict. So if both Ahmed and Burhan accept Kiir, then that is fine. If one of them has to prefer Ruto and the other one someone else, then I think they have to go ahead and look for someone else who accepted by both sides of the conflict. But then, as I said last time again, we don't have to treat both sides as equal. Yeah. No, because they're not. We have the armed forces of Sudan, and then of course we have the RSF. The RSF is considered, if you ask me, that's a criminal gang. You can remember what they did in Darfur, and what has happened is they've taken advantage of the conflict and the disorganization in the country to amass resources, get weapons, and now wreak havoc. And what we have to remember is they are not in every part of the country as we speak. If you look at the armed forces and the RSF is in one section and Khartoum, that is the capital, which basically means if the international community or the mediators in this conflict can come in and support the armed forces, the RSF can be contained. And as we look for negotiations, as we move to the table where these guys can be brought together, that is the understanding we need to have. If you treat them as equals, you're going to have a problem, because the RSF is not willing to respect the armed forces. The armed forces, yes. So we expect, we need the international community to come in and tell the RSF that we don't recognize you as a legitimate force, because in essence, they don't actually represent any legal security force or agents within Sudan. But
someone would beg to differ, because they had been working together. So on what basis then do you say that they are not... The
RSF was formed, of course, in an extra-legal platform by Bashir, basically to commit atrocities in Darfur. We remember what they did. They raped, they killed, all those crimes well documented. And because we don't have Bashir, and given what he did, I think they need to remember that whoever formed them is no longer in office.
Okay.
And their position is not supported by the law. So the idea of allowing them to come to the table to negotiate is out of respect. So they need to actually stop pressing too much. And of course, when you look at the kind of behavior they have at the moment, they're the only ones who are bombing hospitals, they're bombing schools.
The residential.
Yeah, and the armed forces is a bit restrained in their, usage of force. So there's a difference in the behavior.
I think in the coming days we will see what that delegation led by President William Ruto will come up with. But then again, President William Ruto was in Djibouti the other day, counseled Africans traveling to Kenya visa-free. What does that mean in having an Africa that is borderless, and how is that important moving forward when it comes to doing business together and just having an Africa that even has its own currency? We know that is one of the issues being discussed at African Union.
When it comes to a borderless Africa, that is a dream. I'd call it a pipe dream. It's something which must not be implemented at this time. And I think from a domestic standpoint, Kenya is making a very big mistake in allowing these guys to flow in. I just listened to an American analyst talking about how the Muslim Brotherhood is likely to take hold of Sudan and use it as a breeding ground for terrorists. Unfortunately, Kenya has opened its borders to all these guys. Now they're coming in. And like I said last time, when these guys find their way from Sudan to Kenya, they come here and look for our vulnerable girls. Like if you want to go to the United States and become a citizen, you look for a lady, you marry her, and then you become a citizen. Now, these guys are coming here, they look for our girls who are looking for small amounts of money, they lie to them, they marry them. So when you want to deport this guy back to Sudan or some other place, he claims to be a Kenyan citizen by what? By marriage. So that is how these guys are going to find their way to Kenya. And then, Kenya has lost so much in terms of lives to terrorists. Remember Garissa attack, Westgate, all these, lives lost. So we don't have to allow that. A borderless Africa can only be realized when there is what we call a proper system of security, whereby the movement of people from place to place can be tracked, and those people who are out to commit crimes arrested. Last time, the Congolese government blamed us for exporting terror to them because some guy called, I think, Mohammed or something, left Nairobi, went to Goma, Kivu, and got into a church where there was a very, very serious attack where we lost lives. So we are not yet able to control that kind of movement in a manner that can assure security for everybody. So, and then, of course, when you talk about a currency for the entire continent, that is something that is going to take a long time. We're yet to even get to 10% of where we can have a currency which can be used for the entire continent.
And African leaders have taken the responsibility of trying to mediate between Russia and Ukraine. South African government and other leaders have gone there. I mean, how does this look for Africa? And can they finally manage to convince these two warring leaders from these two countries to finally sit down at the table and bring peace?
That is a joke when you talk about when you talk about Africans trying to bring the Russians and the Ukrainians together. The Russia-Ukraine war is something that has been cooking for so long, close to 20-25 years. You remember at some point when Obama was president, the Russians took Crimea from Ukraine. Even the Europeans themselves were not able to stop Russia from doing that. The Americans were not able to stop Russia from doing that. Now, there is something, in what we call geopolitical, gamesmanship. There's something NATO gets to gain by Russia getting to where? To Ukraine. And I think they saw it coming 10 years ago. And they knew the best way to deal with Putin is to let him get into Ukraine, then make it a NATO war against what? Russia. Then make sure Russia crashes itself completely. As we speak now, the Russian armory is out of tanks. It's out of precise ammunition, as Putin himself came out and confessed. So they're going through a very difficult time because they're not dealing with Ukraine alone. They're actually dealing with the armaments of France, Great Britain, Germany, the US, Denmark, Finland, Poland, all these countries together. So by the end of the war, which Africans cannot, of course, have a say in, Russia will be crushed. Of course, we have guys who want to come out and portray Russia as this great country which is able to go into war and fight. It's not happening.
Yes.
So Africans need to focus on African problems, which they've not been able to deal with anyway.
But then, as we wind up, we can only hope that even with African leaders going there, they will manage to bring peace in Ukraine because we want to enjoy that. And it is on that note that Africa Speaks comes to an end. I was having this conversation with Ochari Oyeyo, regional governance expert, as we just try to make sense on what was happening the entire week. My name is Dennis Aseto. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. For everybody that made this a success. Asante sana.